Victor Hale did not plan to be home that night. His jet had landed hours ahead of schedule because the deal in Zurich collapsed faster than expected, and irritation still buzzed through his veins as he let himself into the mansion with his own key. He expected lights, movement, the faint echo of life unfolding on routine. Instead, the door closed behind him with a hollow sound that seemed to swallow the air. The house felt wrong. It wasn't just quiet, it was the kind of silence that pressed against the skin, alert and listening. Victor paused, his hand still on the door, instincts sharpened by decades of navigating boardrooms where one wrong move could cost millions. The chandelier in the foyer was dimmed to half its usual glow. The scent of lemon polish lingered, but beneath it was something sharper, metallic, unfamiliar. He took a step forward. Marble clicked softly under his shoes, far too loud in the stillness. His jaw tightened. He hated unpredictability. The staff knew his routines with military precision. Someone should have greeted him. Someone always did. A faint sound drifted down from the upper floor. Not conversation. Not music. It was irregular, like furniture scraping, followed by a low, strangled sound that might have been a curse or a groan. Victor's hand slid instinctively into his jacket, reaching for a phone he hadn't yet taken out. Before his fingers touched fabric, a sudden movement flashed at the edge of his vision. A hand shot out of the shadows and clamped around his sleeve. "Sir, don't," a voice breathed. "Please, stay quiet." Victor's heart lurched as he turned sharply, muscles coiling for confrontation. The words he was about to unleash, sharp, commanding, froze when he saw her face. Anna. She stood so close he could feel the tremor running through her arm. Her eyes, usually downcast and composed, were wide and glistening with fear. A loose strand of dark hair clung to her cheek, and her apron was creased and smeared as if she'd been dragged or had fallen. One finger hovered at her lips, trembling, begging for silence. "What is this?" Victor whispered, anger fighting confusion. "Why are you?" A heavy thump interrupted him from upstairs. Something hit the floor hard enough to make the banister vibrate. Anna flinched violently, her grip tightening as though she feared he might vanish if she let go. "Please," she whispered again, the word cracking. "If they hear you, it's over." "They," Victor repeated, lowering his voice despite himself. Footsteps followed the thump, unhurried, careless, the sound of men who believed they owned the space they were in. Victor felt a slow, icy sensation spread through his chest. No alarms. No guards. No alerts on his phone. "This isn't possible," he murmured. "Security. Disabled," Anna said quickly. "The cameras too. They knew where everything was." Her words landed like blows. Victor scanned the foyer, suddenly noticing things he had missed. One of the side tables slightly out of place, a smear on the wall where someone had steadied themselves, the faint scent of sweat overlaying the polish. Someone had torn through his home methodically. From upstairs, a voice cut through the air, rough and impatient. "Check the west rooms again. He doesn't leave things lying around." Victor's blood went cold. Anna's lips barely moved as she spoke. "They think you're still overseas." The realization hit him with stunning clarity. These men weren't burglars. They weren't opportunists. They were hunting information, and possibly him. Another voice responded, lower, annoyed. "If we don't find it, we wait. He always keeps backups." Victor met Anna's eyes. In them, he saw fear, but also something else. Determination. A fierce, desperate focus that kept her standing when panic should have broken. "How long have they been here?" he asked quietly. "Since just after lunch," she replied. "They came through the service entrance. I thought it was maintenance at first." A distant crash echoed as something glass shattered upstairs. Anna sucked in a sharp breath. "I tried to run," she continued in a whisper. "They caught the guards first. Tied them up in the utility room. I hid when they started searching." Victor's mind raced, cataloging threats, calculating odds. 3 voices so far. Possibly more. Armed. Coordinated. Someone had sold them precise knowledge of his systems. Anna tugged gently at his sleeve. "You need to hide. Now. This is my house," Victor whispered back, pride flaring despite the danger. "And they will kill you in it," she replied without hesitation. Her certainty silenced him. She guided him toward the space beneath the staircase, a narrow shadow he had never given a second thought to. As he crouched, marble cold against his knee, Victor felt an unfamiliar sensation, being led, rather than leading. Another set of footsteps moved overhead, closer this time. A man laughed briefly, humorless. "Guy lives like a ghost." Barely anything personal. Victor clenched his jaw. Years of control, of insulation, suddenly felt like vulnerabilities. In the darkness, Anna knelt beside him, her breathing shallow but controlled. He noticed then how carefully she held herself, how she angled her body toward the stairs as if ready to intercept danger. Not hiding. Guarding. Why didn't you leave? He whispered. She hesitated. There was nowhere safe. That's not an answer. Her eyes flicked up to his, reflecting a glint of light from the hall. Because if you walked in and I wasn't here, you'd be dead. The words settled heavily between them. Upstairs, a drawer slammed shut. Nothing here, a voice snapped. Move to the study, another ordered. Anna's shoulders stiffened. That's where they'll stay longest. Victor exhaled slowly, forcing his pulse to steady. Beneath the fear, something else stirred, respect. This woman knew his house, his habits, his silences. She had seen him in ways no board member ever had. You did well, he murmured. She shook her head faintly. Not yet. The footsteps shifted away, but the danger did not lift. The mansion, once a fortress of wealth and control, had become a trap. And in the dark beneath the stairs, Victor Hale understood one shocking truth with perfect clarity. The most powerful person in his house wasn't the billionaire hiding in silence. It was the maid who had the courage to whisper, "Stay quiet," and mean it. The footsteps retreated toward the far end of the house, but the tension beneath the staircase did not ease. Victor remained still, counting breaths, listening to the rhythm of unfamiliar men pacing through his life. Somewhere above them, a door creaked open, followed by the scrape of a chair dragged across hardwood. The sound carried intent. They were settling in, not rushing. Waiting. Anna shifted slightly beside him, careful not to brush the wall. Her eyes were fixed upward, reading sounds the way others read faces. Victor realized she had been doing this for hours, alone, unarmed, calculating every movement. He leaned closer. There in the study, he whispered. She nodded once. They think whatever they want is there. They won't leave until they're sure. Victor's mind raced through layers of safeguards, redundancies he had built after years of betrayal and hostile takeovers. There were systems even his head of security didn't know about. But activating any of them now would make noise, send signals, trigger responses that might reveal his presence too soon. Above them, a man cursed. Encrypted. Of course it is. Another voice answered, irritated. He always has. Contingencies. Victor allowed himself the smallest, grim smile. That much was true. Anna watched him, as if sensing the shift. You have something, she whispered. He nodded slowly. But timing matters. A sudden shout shattered the fragile calm. Someone moved something downstairs. Victor's pulse spiked. Anna's hand flew to his wrist, grounding him. That was you? He asked quietly. She shook her head. No, but they're getting nervous. Heavy steps thundered toward the stairs, then paused. A shadow crossed the light filtering through the banister. Victor held his breath, every muscle coiled. After a moment that felt endless, the shadow retreated. False alarm, someone muttered. Focus. Anna released a shaky breath she had been holding for far too long. Victor studied her profile in the dimness, the set of her jaw, the way fear had not erased clarity. It struck him then that she had not once asked about her own safety. How did you know they wouldn't search here? He murmured. They don't look where people don't look, she replied. You never come down here. The truth stung. Upstairs, the voices grew louder, more frustrated. A drawer slammed. Glass rattled. Victor made his decision. Slowly, silently, he reached into his jacket and drew out his phone. Anna's eyes widened, and she shook her head urgently. No sound, she mouthed. He turned the screen toward her, showing the dim glow. Beneath the phone, taped carefully along the case, was a second, thinner device, an independent transmitter, invisible unless you knew to look for it. Her eyes flicked back to his face. What is that? A lifeline, he whispered. Not connected to the house. Not traceable by anything they've shut down. He typed with painstaking slowness, each movement deliberate. One message. One trigger. The response was immediate, though silent. From upstairs came a new sound, a faint wail in the distance, growing steadily louder. Sirens. For half a second, the house seemed to freeze. Then chaos erupted. What the hell? Someone shouted. Did you call someone? Another demanded. Victor rose from beneath the stairs, straightening to his full height as the sirens multiplied, surrounding the estate. He stepped into the open, his voice carrying calm authority that cut through panic like a blade. This house is surrounded, he said evenly. You have less than 30 seconds to put your weapons down and lie on the floor. Footsteps pounded overhead. A crash. A man swore loudly. They weren't supposed to respond that fast. One voice yelled. Anna stood beside Victor now, no longer hiding. Her knees trembled, but she did not step back. You underestimated more than response time, Victor said. You underestimated loyalty. The first man appeared at the top of the stairs, gun in hand, eyes wild. He froze when he saw Victor standing there, alive and unafraid. "You," the man began. The front doors exploded inward as police flooded the foyer, weapons raised, commands echoing through the marble halls. "Drop it. On the ground. Now." The gun clattered to the floor. Within minutes, the mansion was no longer quiet. Officers moved with precision, shouting codes, escorting handcuffed men past shattered furniture and overturned tables. The intruders, confidence drained away, replaced by disbelief and fury. Victor stood still amid the storm, his gaze never leaving Anna. When it was over, when the house finally exhaled, dawnlight crept through broken windows and scattered shadows across the floor. An officer approached, asking questions, but Victor waved him aside. Later, he said, "Make sure my staff is safe." Anna sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. The adrenaline had left her shaking now, exhaustion settling into her bones. Victor approached quietly, pulling out a chair across from her. "You knew I'd come home early," he said. She nodded, staring into the cup. "You always do when things fall apart. You hate unfinished endings." He almost smiled. "You noticed that." "I notice a lot," she replied softly. "People think being invisible means being unaware." Silence stretched between them, heavy but no longer frightening. "You saved my life," Victor said finally. She looked up, startled. "I just did what anyone should." "No," he said firmly. "You did what most people wouldn't." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, contracts, figures that would have stunned any of his executives. "I want you in charge of this house," he continued. "Operations, security coordination, training. I trust you." Anna's breath caught. "Sir, I'm just." "You're the reason I'm still here," he interrupted. "Titles can catch up to truth." Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded, swallowing hard. Outside, the sun rose higher, illuminating a mansion forever changed, not by the men who tried to break it, but by the quiet courage of the woman who had protected it when no one else could.